Maybe you saw the news item some time back about a Canadian farmer who sold his Stradivarius violin for, I think it was in the neighborhood of $60,000. He sold it to the same New York City dealer he had bought it from many years before. The dealer paid him more for it than he had paid, and that's because, of course, the violin had appreciated in value over the years and because of the shrinking buying power of the dollar. But the farmer sold his precious violin by the world's most famous violin craftsman because, as he put it, I'm getting old and I have no children to leave it to. And by getting it back in the hands of the dealer, he knew that it would wind up with someone who would treasure it as he had. Antonio Stradivari, the Italian violin maker, lived from 1644 to 1737. That's 93 years at a time when the average lifespan was about 30. He worked alone, although later in his life his sons helped him. No committee advised him. No one made decisions for him. His tools were primitive, but that was not important. He put himself into his work. All the world's tools couldn't make up for that. When he was finished with an instrument, when he was sure that his work measured up to his own personal standards, he signed his name to it. And today, more than 200 years later, his name is a household word all over the world. Everybody's heard of Stradivarius, the Latin form of the name that he inscribed on his violins. Throughout history, there have always been men with similar standards of excellence. Authors such as William Shakespeare, artists like Leonardo da Vinci, craftsmen like furniture maker Thomas Chippendale and silversmith Paul Revere. Everything they did was done well, not because it had to be, but because they wanted it to be. They had only to please themselves, yet the products of their fertile minds and skillful hands are still collected and admired today. What is it that causes one person to take pride in what he does, while others give little or no thought to the quality of their work at all, do you know? Of course, when we talk about Stradivari or Da Vinci, we're talking about great geniuses, towering talents who found their media and became great in them. There have been many other fine violin makers and artists who took just as much pride and care in their work, but lacked the same quality of talent. There are even today many thousands of craftsmen who will not turn out shoddy work and who are proud to sign their names to their creations. They're in the minority, perhaps. They've always been in the minority. But the respect for quality never changes. It still commands the highest price. It's still revered wherever we find it. And the person creating it has gained for himself two precious assets. First, he's built the kind of security that lasts a lifetime. He need never worry about his income. And second, his work is a source of satisfaction and joy to him. He derives deep satisfaction from being an uncommon person. And now a moment for this message. People who set their own high standards to which they make themselves measure up lead enjoyable, exciting lives. Each task they begin is a fascinating contest to achieve their own standards of excellence. Thank you. Which could make a wonderful difference in your life. Now, if you already know about everything I'm going to say, you're a remarkable person, and according to the latest statistics, you belong to the top 5% of all the working people in the world. You're to be congratulated. If you don't know about the things I'm going to say, well, you've been holding yourself back, not only on the job, but you're also missing a big percentage of the greatest joy in life. I want to talk about your boss and your relationship with him. How you handle this relationship will determine your success or failure. It will determine how much money you make or do not make. And it will determine whether you're a happy person or an unhappy person. So let's talk about you and your boss. Who is your boss? You have only one. And every working person, from the president of the largest corporation to the shoeshine boy, has the same boss. He is simply the customer. There never has been, there is not now, and there never will be any boss but the customer. He's the one boss you must please. Everything you own, he's paid for. He buys your home, your cars, your clothes. He pays for your vacations and puts your kids through school. He pays your doctor bills and writes every paycheck you will ever receive. He'll give you every promotion you will ever obtain during your lifetime. And he will discharge you if you displease him. Now, sometimes, particularly in these days of, seemingly complex economics and big business, we lose sight of just what business is. It all started back during the most primitive times. A man, in order to fend for himself and his family, had to provide his own food and his own shelter. He had to do his own fighting and fashion his own rough clothes and crude weapons for hunting and materials for fishing. Later, he had to manufacture his own farming implements. In short, each man had to personally take care of every department of life. Now, naturally, it came about that men and women with certain talents appeared. One was particularly adept at fashioning spears, another at fishing, another at hunting, another at making garments, and so on. And it was only natural that soon these individuals found that they could best spend most of their time in the pursuit of that which they were most talented at and trade their production for the production of others. As a result, the man who made spears found that others would give him a share of their food, clothing, and so on if he'd provide them with spears. Thus, trade and commerce began. Now, it's far more complex today, but still based on the same principle. A person's money is the result of his production, and he trades it for things he needs and wants. And it's here that logical discrimination comes into the picture. Now, since his money is the result of his work, it's left to his discretion where he spends it. And it's here that he assumes the role of boss. He will spend his money only with those whom he feels have earned it. And this is as it should be. You and I are exactly the same way. If someone treats you badly in any way, then you instinctively feel that he hasn't earned your business, and you will withhold it from him. And our prosperity as individuals hinges directly on our attitude toward what we do for a living. The man who works on an automobile assembly line might not think much about the car at the point of sale, or about the family which will eventually buy and travel in that car. But that family pays his salary, and they will withhold the purchase of the car on which he works if it does not earn their respect and admiration. If you doubt this, even for a moment, think of the cars which once were popular and which can no longer be seen on the road. This applies to all products. Having earned a successful place in the economy should never be confused with keeping it. It must be earned every day, year in, year out. There's not a company that could not go out of business. Everything depends on how the boss is treated, the boss being the customer. And yet the customer is eminently fair, just as you are. He can be won back, and if he's treated with the importance he deserves, he can, in a few years, bring a lot of other people into your place of business. Now, let me tell you something you may not have thought about. If you got in your car and started driving across the country, you'd pass many thousands of businesses, from small restaurants, drugstores, grocery stores, and gas stations to great sprawling corporate complexes covering hundreds of acres and employing thousands of people. By simply looking at each one, you can tell how they're treating the boss. Did you know that your rewards are in exact proportion to your service? Well, that's right. We're paid exactly what we earn, but no more. And you can tell by looking at any business exactly what it has earned by seeing what it has. And it's the same with people. We get back exactly what we earn, but not a penny more. And this, again, is just the way it should be. A person might be underpaid for a while, but the scales of life balance eventually. And he will, in the end, receive just what he's earned. There are, of course, two ways in which we're paid for what we do. One is tangible in the form of money, and the other is intangible, but just as important. To many, it's more important. This latter form of payment comes in the form of inner satisfaction and in the form of joy as a result of accomplishment. It also comes in the form of satisfaction in position, in the standing it gives us. So each of us is paid in these two ways, money and satisfaction. There's a simple way to increase both of these forms of income, money as well as in inner satisfaction, and you'll be able to spend and feel the results. First, I want you to understand completely the great law which lies as the foundation of all life, business and personal. It is that our rewards in life will always be in exact proportion to our service. The more you think about this and observe people in business, the more you'll see the undeniable truth of it. Now try as best you can to estimate the proportion of your total ability you have been giving to your work. I don't think anyone gives 100%. I don't think it's possible to give 100%, day in and day out. I know I don't. But estimate what you consider to be the percentage you have been giving to your work. Would you say it's been 30%, 50%? Anyway, try to decide. Now, since your rewards will be in exact proportion to your service, well, you can increase your income, both financially and from an inner satisfaction standpoint, simply by narrowing the distance between what you have been giving to your work and the 100%, which it may be said you could give under ideal conditions. Now, you don't have to ask for a raise. The income will appear of its own accord and at the right time. You may want to question this, but try to take my word for it. Now, the second point I want to make is this. If you begin to do your work better than you've ever done it before, you will immediately begin to receive incalculably more inner satisfaction. You'll also find what may have been a boring or uninteresting job will take on new meaning and interest. No matter what it is you do during the entire working day, try in every case to do a little more than you have to, more than you're being paid for, because unless you do more than you're being paid for now, you can't justify an increase in pay. And the third point I want to make is this. Each of us is interdependent. As I pointed out earlier, other people pay our salaries, buy our homes, clothe, feed, and educate our children. Therefore, we depend on others for our very lives, just as they depend upon us. Now, if we expect others to give us excellent service and fine products for the money we spend, doesn't it make good sense that we should treat them the same way? Every hour spent at our work should be spent in the attempt to give the best of which we're capable. A baker's dozen for the money our company's customers spend for our products and services, and with which our salaries are paid. A person who tries to get the maximum return for the minimum of effort is only kidding himself. Sooner or later, the scales will balance. They must, for that's the law, whether we like it or not. This kind of individual actually shrinks as a person, as a human being, and he has no real place in a dynamic and swiftly changing world. And the fourth point is to try each day to find some way in which the work you're doing can be improved. Now, here again, you're guaranteeing an increase in your income in both categories. We all know that the cynics will laugh at this. I know them, you know them. But I don't know one who could be said to be doing well, do you? I know lots of men and women who are at the top of their fields who live their lives every day in the way I've suggested. Rather than go along with someone who's never proved in his own life that he knows what it's about, I'd prefer to believe the one who said, "As ye sow, so shall ye reap." I feel, as I'm sure you do, that he was more qualified to speak than the know-it-all who's behind in his installment payments. Anyway, it's worth a test. If you follow my suggestions for the next year, you'll be a different person, living a rich, rewarding, and meaningful life. 4 things, all of them simple. 1, remember that our rewards in life will be in exact proportion to our service. 2, by giving your work a larger percentage of your capabilities and talents, you must increase your income substantially. 3, since our lives depend on others, treat others in every facet of your life exactly as you want others to treat you. If you expect others to give you excellent products and services for the money you and your family spend, then you should make certain that your job is handled excellently, since it's the money of others which pays your salary. 4, try to find some way every day in which your work can be improved. And above all, know your boss. He's the customer. Treat him with the respect, care, and courtesy and humor he deserves. Remember that he pays all of your bills every month. He will buy everything you will ever own. He may be, of course, crude, coarse, ignorant, selfish, conniving, and a thoroughgoing savage. He often will be. And here it's more important that you treat him with all the care and attention you can muster. If you don't, and if you permit his attitude to affect yours, you're admitting that he's the stronger person. If you respond the same way he conducts himself, you're admitting you're no better than he is. But most people are nice people. They're people like you and me who want to be liked, who want to get along, and who want to be friends. They have problems and sorrows of their own, of which we're not aware. And they have bad days and disappointments. Make sure that the time they're with you is a high spot in their day, and they'll want to come back, not just because of your company, but because of you. If you'll do these things for a year, you'll be surprised and delighted, and you'll find that you wouldn't live any other way for the world. If you're already living this way, you know what I mean. Thank you.